This podcast is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment. The opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the business psychos and does not reflect the viewpoints of their current or former employers or clients. Thank you.
It's the business cycles, and today we're gonna talk it out. The podcast about what execs shouldn't talk about. Connecting executives and those who aspire. We're here to have a conversation, yeah, we're gonna light the fire. It's the business cycles. Yeah. The business cycles.
So today we are covering a topic requested by several listeners. It was on our list, but based on the demand, we pushed this one, and I'm glad we did.
Me too, Katie. I'm excited to bring our unique psycho's view to quiet quitting. This is a topic that's been discussed ad nauseum, but in my mind, usually in relatively unsurprising ways. It feels like there's an opportunity for some deeper insight and more tangible recommendations. This is a topic that both employers and employees have really strong opinions on. I'm going to stop there and read an email we received from a listener. Hey, psychos, big fan of the show. I'm an executive in finance. I straddle both sides of the game that you discuss on the show. I like to think of myself as an empathetic leader, but in my role, I'm expected to get things done, and this can make me feel squeezed between two unmovable entities. I'm in the position to make unpopular decisions, and while I do my best to socialize them with employees, sometimes the decisions aren't negotiable. Since COVID, the phenomenon of quiet quitting has become a significant problem at our company. Throughout my long career, I've never encountered anything like this. While it's something discussed frequently amongst the leadership team, we don't really have any idea how to deal with it. I'd be interested in hearing you discuss this on the show. Any advice you can share for a good-hearted leader would be most appreciated. And it's signed, Stressed.
All right, Stressed Kathy. Well, Mary, we should also read the other letter from a so-called quiet quitter, counterpoint. So here it goes. Let me pull it up. Hi, I'm 31 and work for a large company in a mid-level role. I have a master's degree and do not consider myself to be a lazy person, but I've made the decision to quiet quit, along with most of the people I work with, most of whom also have advanced degrees and who don't consider themselves lazy or unethical. This all said, me and my coworkers work at a very large and highly profitable corporation that is known for being terrible to its employees. They've gotten rid of all remote work, have frequent layoffs, a toxic culture where jerks are promoted, and anyone considered too nice is eaten alive by politics. I work here because it pays really well, and I have college debt to pay off. I also live in an expensive city because of the company's policy requiring in-office work. To cope with all of this, me and my colleagues all do the absolute minimum. I badge into the office to drink a few cups of coffee, then after 2 hours, take a bunch of soda and snacks back home, where I spend the rest of the day doing as little as possible. I watch Netflix, go to the gym, and nap. I know my company monitors what we do, so I use a device to make it seem that I'm working. There are days where I feel guilty, but then something stupid happens at work, or I see the latest quarterly results, and I tell myself the company is doing just fine. You both talk about playing the game. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts about what me and my coworkers are doing. I should add that I continue to get very positive performance reviews and that this lifestyle is helping me take care of my personal life and mental health. Thanks. And we'll call this person Quentin.
I had a Cabbage Patch doll named Quentin. That's the last time I've heard the name Quentin. Sorry. I mean, it's so specific. How could I not bring it up?
Are you sure it's not him?
No, it could be.
Yeah,
we fell out of touch in this.
Yes.
So without my parenting, this is what happens. His
It's
hair smelled
cultural
like baby
fabric.
powder. It was crazy. Anyway,
That's
I'm
how you'll know
really,
it's
really,
him. That's the
that's
only
how I'll
way you'll
know.
be able to,
Quentin, does your hair smell like baby powder?
you'll have to
Did
sniff
you, do you
it.
have like a little denim hat? Anyway, I'm aging myself. No one
Yeah.
wants to
Can
hear
you
about this.
imagine? You're like, hey, writer, can we see you? And they show up and they're wearing a little denim hat. And you're like,
Little
they're
coveralls.
literally like,
It's like the
yeah,
exact same outfit. Where did I drop
sorry,
the ball,
quiet.
Quentin? Okay, this is a great one. So many thoughts and clearly feelings coming up for me right now. I feel like I have like a little boss on one shoulder and a little employee on the other shoulder, and they're like arguing. I mean, this whole topic, I feel like it could be a podcast in of itself. Anyway, let's start the conversation.
And we'll be right back.
Let's dive into this idea of quiet quitting. We've all heard the term, and while it's often framed as employees setting boundaries or protecting their mental health, the reality is much deeper for many people. So that second listener, Quentin, described something I've seen a lot. Highly educated, capable individuals choosing to disengage, not because they're lazy, but because they don't feel valued or respected. They're caught in a toxic corporate culture, doing just enough to get by, not necessarily out of rebellion, but out of survival. What they're describing often sounds like a form of depression. The constant need to rationalize or justify their actions speaks to a deeper emotional strain. And when you spend your days reconciling whether your reaction to your job is a flaw of your character, it takes a toll. I think it's important to recognize that quiet quitting isn't just about taking a step back mentally. It's about finding ways to game the system, often with a sense of guilt. Sure, they might point to the company's profits or bad leadership as justification, but the long-term psychological impact of this coping mechanism, it's significant. What does this mean for their career trajectory or even the company culture as a whole? The short-term win of surviving in this environment comes with a long-term cost, both personally and professionally. I've seen an increasing number of folks who do not have skills you'd expect to see for their length of tenure and career, especially in the first decade of your career. Mary, you've described in earlier episodes the importance of building that foundation. So, look, for leaders, this is where things get tricky. Balancing empathy and results are hard when quiet quitting becomes the norm, but it's essential. Employees need to feel seen, heard, and respected. Quiet quitting isn't just a trend, it's a reflection of a deeper problem in corporate cultures. So this is why, as I see it, leaders need to evolve, creating an environment where people don't feel the need to disengage just to survive. It's not about squeezing out more productivity. It's about building a culture where everyone can thrive.
Yes. Clap, clap, clap. Snap, snap, snaps. 1,000% yes. I mean, we're not talking about kids working at an ice cream store, for extra money here, right?
Yeah.
So I presume Quentin he's working at a large company, sounds like a mid-senior role. He's intentionally chosen to work there as a career. And ironically, I bet the kids at the ice cream store are having more fun. By the way, as a teen, I had friends who worked at a frozen yogurt store, and oh my God, pretty awesome if you have a teenager and someone who works in an ice cream store. Anyway, Katie, I'm getting distracted again.
Actually, Adia worked at an ice cream store. And it's
the best thing.
Exactly as you described. Exactly as you described.
Yeah, of professions you want your friends to have. You would think like, oh, not an ice cream store, but all those things like TCBY, I don't even think it exists anymore. All these different toppings, you get like TCBY. Vanilla yogurt and then like Oreos on top of it. Anyway, Katie, I think you're spot on when you talk about survival and coping here. This listener is clearly not lazy. He has a master's, probably an MBA or whatever. He's made a serious investment in himself to achieve that. So what happened? Right? It feels unnatural that someone who started out with all of that drive and self-discipline is suddenly shut down and disengaged. Alexander Dennayer is credited with saying, if a flower doesn't bloom, you fix the environment in which it grows, not the flower. This listener is not thriving. Katie, to your point, he's surviving. And we've all been there. And it's normal to do this when you're in a suboptimal spot, but short term. Friend, you need an action plan to get yourself to a better place. I mean, not even necessarily for your career, but for your mental wellness, for your spirit. Life is short. I can certainly attest that as you age, you have a clearer perspective on this. And I'm going to get distracted again because now I'm thinking about that Pink Floyd song, Time. And yes, now I'm going to quote it again, another quote. Tired of lying in the sunshine, staying home to watch the rain. You're young and life is long and there's time to kill today. And then one day you find 10 years have got behind you. No one told you when to run. You missed the starting gun. So run, Quentin, run.
Hang tight, psychos. We'll be right back.
I've spoken on the show in the past about my work ethic, which at times has been a bit extra, as the kids say. Some of this is who I am, and in some cases, it was more about me trying to get something personal from my professional life. In any case, I'll say, because I've held this mindset for so long and because I've held leadership roles, my initial reaction to quiet quitting when I heard about it was reflexively pretty negative. Something like, what's wrong with these lazy, entitled people? It's something akin to get off my lawn. It's like, but I think this came from, frankly, a place of resentment and frustration. The former, because I had played by what I thought was the rules by giving my jobs every ounce and then some of myself. And damn it, if others don't dance to the same music. I did this for years. And also, as a leader, I've had responsibility for large corporate programs and fully appreciate that I couldn't get anything done without the support of my teams. So I think part of my negative reaction to quiet quitting is frankly one of fear. It's scary to imagine being the general of an army where the soldiers refuse to fight. And after deeper reflection, I started to see things from another perspective. The 2 letters we received on this topic fascinated me. I can certainly relate to stressed Kathy, who describes herself as, empathetic and seems very frustrated. She's in a position of needing to sell the corporate agenda while on some level being aware of the parts that are bullshit. She has to extend her own political capital and credibility to get employees to sign on. I've been in this position, and it is extremely difficult to navigate. If you lose respect as a leader, you risk losing the support and respect of everyone who works for you. But if you don't get results, your personal performance and advancement opportunities can be seriously impacted. If you're lucky, you might achieve both. But it's also pretty easy, especially in toxic cultures, to lose on both fronts. At first, I found it hard to relate to Quentin. Katie, I mean, even though we're related, but it's
estranged.
Denial. Estranged.
You'd originally signed it off estranged, Quentin. I was like, what's that about? I didn't get it. So
this is how he really wanted to reunite with me. So you know me well, Katie. I think it's fair to say most people would not describe me as a goody-goody. But I would have. What was that? No,
I was laughing.
Okay.
No, it's true. No, the accuracy of it.
Right. I'm not a good kid.
No.
But I would have so much guilt and anxiety from what Quentin is doing. I was thinking, like, when he was mentioning Netflix, like, I don't even watch Netflix or TV or anything like during the day on the weekends because it makes me feel like I'm being lazy. And I'd probably only allow myself to watch something if I was sick. By the way, another diversion, when I'm sick, I watch Harry Potter movies. It's my self-soothing ritual.
That is kind of goody-goody.
Then it occurred to me that, what's that? What's that? Harry Potter?
That is a little goody-goody now that you mention it. Harry Potter is so wholesome.
I don't know. It gets dark at the end.
Oh, it does? Okay. I've never watched them. I'm too much of a badass.
All right, we need to stop this whole.
You're like, it's over.
You are the second person. You know, Dave, our friend Dave, who we met. Dave also hasn't seen Harry Potter, and the last time he was over, it was like screech, like record screech. It's like just stop the conversation, and I was like, we need to do this right now. And then it was like I was like, you have to commit to watching them with me. And he was like, all right. And everyone's laughing. And I was like, no, you have to commit. And he's like, all right, next time I'm over a weekend or whatever. And I felt like how many people are left in the world who are Harry Potter virgins? Like, I'm going to experience watching Harry Potter with someone like for the first time through their eyes. So,
well, maybe.
So you're another person now.
Yeah, first of all, you've just identified a pattern, which might be cause for evaluating the company you keep. And second of all, maybe the reason that you don't identify as being a goody-goody is because you hang out with virgins. So you're like, I'm just the badass because I'm the only person who's not a virgin.
I'm the badass.
Because I'm the only person who's not Harry Potter.
That makes me the badass.
Yes. Yes.
I have seen it, and it feels like every time I travel, we don't have like regular cable or anything. We just do streaming. And so whenever I'm traveling and I'm in a hotel or something, somehow I always happen upon the channel that it's like always on and I can't turn it off. Like I'll just have it on in the background. And then during the COVID years, I got the flu a couple times, and then I always get a reaction from the vaccines and the boosters. So I have rewatched Harry Potter in the last 4 years, like so much. But all right, I'm just making a mental note about. Let's come back to that. We've got a lot of actions for ourselves on the back of this episode.
It's really creating more work than it's actually getting done.
I think I'm really feeling like we need to pivot away from a business podcast and making it more pop culture. But anyway, there's enough of that out there. Enough of that out there. I'm going to keep dropping it in and keep dropping it in. But back to Quentin, my son. Man, you and your colleagues, you are sick. Like not with the flu or a sinus infection, but like sick in spirit, sick from working in a job that clearly doesn't challenge or, inspire you on any level. Probably sick from feeling insecure or threatened at work if you're talking about layoffs are there all the time, and probably even like more broadly sick of feeling trapped in an economic system that requires you to trade off mental and physical wellness for the ability to pay off those student loans and your rent.
Yeah.
We talk frequently on the show about trade-offs and consequences of choices made playing the game. And the reality is most of us don't have trust funds to live off of. We're all trying our best to navigate the world while trying to listen to our true inner nature. And there are moments in this journey where sometimes our instincts take over and decide for us. I found it interesting that Quentin kept commenting and sort of worrying about being perceived as lazy. It's kind of like narcissism. My sense is that people who are lazy don't feel a whole lot of angst about being lazy. Quentin also noted that his performance reviews have been positive, indicating that his manager didn't experience him as lazy either. But still deep down, there's that guilt about what you're doing and seeking validation. I don't think there's any issue about laziness here. By the way, as an ethics test, because I do value ethics, I'd pose the question of whether, there's fraud occurring, meaning, are you accepting compensation for work promised but not delivered? We can rule this out because his manager is rating him positively. So, Quentin, there's no reason why you should feel guilty toward your company for what you're doing. But I'd ask you to do some soul searching about whether you're feeling guilty about yourself. I bet you have a whole lot more to offer the world and yourself. You're wasting time and your talents being where you are. Yeah. And I think you know it. As for Kathy, she suggests that what's happening is broad scale quitting. There's some prisoner dilemma happening here because if only a few people do it, it's a performance problem. But when everyone does it, it becomes revolutionary. The zeitgeist about work and our relationship to it has profoundly shifted. COVID maybe was the catalyst. And what we're seeing now is perhaps a natural reaction to the loss of meaningful, fair work, and even in some cases, poor corporate behavior. emboldened by deregulation, consolidation, and the absence of fair labor laws, at least here in the US. Quiet quitting is a counter to all of this, an autocorrection. It's not just about stagnant wage increases and layoffs. I think it goes much deeper, and you suggested this too, Katie. I think it's about finding meaning in one's life and contributing positively to the world itself. As the veil is lifted on the realities of work life, many are finding themselves bored, depressed, or disengaged. Updating Excel and making PowerPoint slides from meetings that have no real value or purpose is draining. This is not what we were put on earth to do. Don't get me wrong, there are trivialities of life. There always will be. But somehow it feels like we've lost our way. I saw a meme the other day. I might have sent this to you, Katie, I forget. Yeah. But it was like a beautiful waterfall, and it was captioned, "Human beings saw this and created Deloitte." Not to pick on Deloitte, but clearly there's a dimension of quiet quitting, which is about power, which you brought up, Katie, and employees trying to regain agency as they become more consciously aware that they really don't have very much.
Yeah.
But I also think there's a broader transformation at play, a more profound awakening of our true nature. I'm hopeful that this will force more profound changes. At one point, child labor and 80-hour work weeks was legal. Hopefully we're ready to take the next step to evolve workforce norms.
As a sort of as a continuation of talking about folks that are at points in their career where their skills and their capacity just isn't where you'd expect it to be based on their tenure and years of experience. One of the other things that I see with that is they know it. Like, it's not like they're oblivious, and the anxiety that provides creates a compounding effect where they know they're at a job. And as every month, quarter, year passes, they're becoming less capable of being able to go to another company and be competitive. So it creates even more like the walls closing in, the sense in quiet quitting, where they've given up, and it's kind of like, but to what end? And so the despair, there's kind of like, it's quiet despairing, is like kind of like an undercurrent in it. And I've yet to see somebody who's quiet quitting that feels like they're really winning at life. Like, there's creating more challenging work environments and meeting your team's evolving needs. It requires a lot of energy. So my hot take, get ready for it, is leaders who aren't adapting to engage and grow their people are quiet quitting at the leadership level. Psychological safety. I think it's Paul Santagata in 2017. He led a Google study on like what creates a high performing team, like what are the factors. And it was revealed that creating psychological safety in a team is paramount. And at Google was the ultimate determinant of the highest performing teams. So creating psychological safety in teams is about fostering an environment where people feel safe to speak up, make mistakes, take risks without fear of judgment or retaliation. And they listed in the Harvard Business Review article on it, they listed, I think it was 6 criteria. So it was like, increased self-awareness. This means leaders are demonstrating vulnerability. For one, that was I think the introduction of that term in the corporate ether. Facilitate participation. Encourage contribution. So design team rituals, establish routines that promote collaboration. Brainstorming, debriefs, and maybe even just fun things that are part of building a sense of unity. Establish adult rules. Treat team members with respect, set clear boundaries, candid policies, reward positive behavior. This is a big one. A lot of times it's just a stick, not a lot of carrot. And recognize and celebrate actions that foster trust and safety. And the last was hold team retrospectives. So regularly reflect on team dynamics and address any issues that arise and be continuously adapting. But here's the catch. None of this matters if leaders don't feel safe themselves. That's why many haven't implemented these methods. Even after the buzz around psychological safety began years ago, Leaders who are disengaged or fearful, they can't foster these environments for their teams. The question is, are leaders contributing to the rise of quiet quitting by not addressing their own safety and well-being? If they don't have the energy to lead from a place of psychological safety, they might be inadvertently perpetuating cultures that suppress human dignity. And in turn, quiet quitting becomes an outcome of that very suppression. In the end, it's about creating spaces where everyone can thrive. And that starts with leaders feeling empowered and secure enough to model the behaviors they want to see in their teams. And if you're not willing or able to create better work environments, well, then you get what we're seeing.
Hang tight, psychos. We'll be right back.
Societal changes tend to happen slowly and after situations reach their tipping point. So a couple pretty depressing examples. In 1911, the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire in New York City killed 146 garment workers, mostly young women immigrants. The company used to lock the employees into the building to keep them working and to block labor organizers from coming in and encouraging workers to join. When a fire broke out in the factory, workers who couldn't find an unlocked door were burned to death, or they threw themselves off the roof. The widespread outrage resulted in new workplace safety standards and catalyzed labor unions. By the way, that building was bought by NYU, and I attended numerous classes. And there's an anniversary of the tragedy remembered every year. It's pretty heavy. There's actually online, there's some, there's like pictures, newspaper pictures. Really, really terrible. In some cases, like there were, several people from one family killed in that event. And then you have the economic collapse of the Great Depression, resulting in massive unemployment, poverty, social unrest. It led to FDR's New Deal, which introduced Social Security, the Fair Labor Standards Act, which we've talked about on the show before. That's about minimum wage, overtime pay, and the 40-hour work week. It also created the Wagner Act, which guarantees workers the right to unionize and engage in collective bargaining. More recently, in 2013, in fact, the Rana Plaza building in Bangladesh collapsed, killing over 1,100 workers and injuring thousands more. The disaster brought global attention to the poor working conditions in the garment industry, leading to the creation of the Accord on Fire and Building Safety in Bangladesh, a legally binding agreement between global brands and trade unions to ensure safer working conditions in the factories that supply major retailers. It feels like we're at a crossroads again, and hopefully with it the opportunity to increase economic opportunities for more people, improve working conditions, and improve greater prosperity for more of the general populace. Quiet quitting feels less like petulance than it does millions of tired souls protesting for a more equitable social landscape, where it's possible to afford a healthy and fulfilling life, doing work that has tangible value for the greater good. Robert Burns said, "The purpose of life is a life of purpose. If you're calling it in, you're not yet there. Don't settle. Create a meaningful life. The world needs you."
Woo! This is heavy stuff. Go and grab a coffee. Hang tight. We'll be right back.
Power dynamics are central to human interaction, most especially the world of work. So at the surface, you accept a job based on a job description and interview conversations, but this is only the very top layer of a multi-layered onion. Think of how little time you spend with an employer before signing the majority of your waking hours and energy over to them. It's similar to moving in, possibly marrying someone after going on a few dates. So often, this so-called reality initially presented is not what it appears to be. I mean, we talk about this on the show all the times, figuring out how things really work. So central to this, and it's pretty obvious and tactical, is doing what is expected of you. So in talking about quiet quitting, we have done numerous shows about the false allure of being a perfectionist, of identifying too much with your job, and believing that you and your company are in a relationship. As we've said time and time again, and I'd actually clarify, like a relationship of mutual accountability. As we've said time and again, it's about making money in a way that works for your needs and values. This is true for the company you work for. Your central criteria is to make as much money as possible, and this is just as true for you. Your job is about making money for yourself, for your family, to provide food, shelter, clothing, also recreation, entertainment, enjoyment. It's about funding your life as you want to live it. Ideally, your job should involve the opportunity to grow, do things that align with your values on at least some level, and be treated with respect and given reasonable autonomy. Sometimes this is not the situation you find yourself in, and until you can afford the life you want, you should focus on building towards it. So stay out of the crosshairs of problematic office politics, and at the executive level, learn to effectively play the game without becoming emotionally entangled, and learn what your boss likes and do it. Be humble, be engaged without becoming overwhelmed, be helpful to coworkers, and lay low. Two additional thoughts on this. First is the impact on quality and innovation. America has been a world leader in great part because of economic opportunity. I was talking to an executive raised in Africa about American culture, and I forget exactly what I was saying, but they corrected me and emphatically said, "No, Katie." Maybe it was something about hustle culture. They said, that's the point of this hustle culture. It's about making money, and that is why I came here. And they were talking about how intense it is to live here, and the reason that you have people who want to immigrate is they want this opportunity to work really crazy hard. And I thought, oh, that's pretty terrifying that's the whole idea, that they know they're jumping into the boiling cauldron. But I mean, this country's mythology is formed on a bedrock of heartwarming immigration and rags to riches stories. But our intense focus on wealth to the detriment of our environment, our physical and mental health, has made many of us revisit this philosophy. I mean, might this lead to a healthier American populace? I sure hope so. There's a larger conversation about taking control of your life by investigating what matters to you instead of trying to impress people who don't care about themselves, much less care about you, with expensive consumer goods. Pay attention to the things that spark joy in you, in your heart. What matters to you? It can be surprising how simple they are, but how these things get crowded out when we're exhausted and burnt out. So my last thought is, to the quiet quitter, is that letter from Quentin, talking about watching Netflix and napping. Now, I don't have an issue with either of these things. In fact, I like both a lot. I would only caution workers taking this route to consider the value in using this extra time to invest in something inspiring, energizing, and productive that, to promote health, happiness, personal growth. Yes, go to the gym, catch up on that book that you've wanted to read, take a class on a subject that fascinates you, but invest in the notion of hope for what the future can bring and a sense of optimism. I have a practice that I've used. It's called inspiration mining. And I'll set up meetings with people who love what they're doing. And this is if I'm feeling kind of disillusioned or burnt out. And when doing this, the hard part for many people doing something like this is letting the call be about spending time in the glow of someone who is engaged and energized. This is simply to shift your perspective. Sure, ask for tips, introductions, whatever. But spending time with people who are living in their zone of brilliance or close to it helps awaken the sleeping giant of our unique genius. Or maybe use all this extra time to like train up in a field that interests you to potentially help support, one day transitioning from the job that funds your dreams, to the dream job that you've always wanted. If it's possible, it can take a shocking amount of energy to tread water in a non-challenging job. So if it isn't possible right now to work towards a better future, give yourself grace and stay open to the possibility that life can be fantastic, even if it doesn't feel that way right now.
Thanks for tuning in. Did you find this episode interesting? Please take a moment to rate and review us on YouTube or your podcast platform of choice. Your feedback not only helps us improve, but ensures you never miss an episode. Plus, your support helps us reach more listeners and bring you even more great content. Oh, and don't keep the good stuff to yourself. Share the love by sending this episode to the folks in your life who might benefit from it. We love building our community and would be thrilled to have them join us. Can't get enough Business Psychos? Get news, behind-the-scenes content, and random commentary, not to mention pictures of Katie's cat, by following us on Instagram and Facebook at Business Psychos Pod. Thanks again for listening.